Kathy.
Hello, everyone.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good.
So also just looking at the attendees again, I'm just going to reiterate a pre-regular council meeting announcement that the regular council meeting will start at 4:30, in which case we will start with the regular council agenda. There'll be a couple of people speaking, delegations speaking before 5 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock sharp, council will recess the regular meeting and begin the public hearing. And there are two public hearings. The first is for Mackenzie Beach Resort application, and the second is for Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust application on Olson Road. And we'll go over the the particulars of those the public hearing meeting outline and what people are required to include if they wish to speak. And also note to attendees that the only way to speak at a public hearing is via Zoom. However, there is a viewing room at the Tla-o-qui-aht Sound Community Theatre. Again, that is for viewing only. Those wishing to speak will have to attend via Zoom. And Nikki, I got a question for Nikki. Miss Best.
Hello.
This is just a technical question. I have a list of attendees and panelists, but this is being broadcast live, I take it, so there'll be numerous other people watching. So once again, I'm going to reiterate this before we get into the beginning to calling the regular council meeting to order. 4:30, I will call the regular council meeting to order, and we will begin the regular council agenda. And that will include two delegations unrelated to the public hearing. At 5 o'clock, the council will recess the regular meeting and begin the public hearing. There are two essentially public hearings. There is a Mackenzie Beach Resort application, which will be first, and the second will be Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust application. Those wishing to make a statement representation at the hearing will have to do so via Zoom. There is a view only option at the Tla-o-qui-aht Sound Community Theatre. Those wishing to speak at the public hearing, and I'll go over this before the public hearing starts, will have to include name, address, and what agenda item or public hearing bylaw the person wishes to speak to. And this is essential as we have two. We don't want people to confuse which public hearing they're speaking at. Again, Zoom at tofino.ca/meetings if attendees wish to comment during the public hearings. And we have 1 minute to go before we call our regular council meeting to order. And just to check, I see that we have Councillor Steer is absent. I'm just checking that right now. For some reason I lost my. Just a moment here. Lost my screen. It is 4:30, and I am calling this regular council meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht And notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. Just a note, one of our councillors, Councillor Chalmers, is here attending the meeting, but due to a medical reason, we'll be keeping her screen off. But we do recognize that Councillor Chalmers is present and active, and we'll turn her screen on for questions, comments, to vote, and if requested by the chair. And just on that note, I want to acknowledge the dedication that councillors put towards attending these meetings, and I appreciate it. If with no objection, then I recommend that pursuant to section 15, I'm sorry, we're actually going to read this about the meeting location. Hold on a sec. That pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229/2016 as amended, the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Municipal Hall, 161 3rd Street in Tofino, BC, and the viewing room in the Community Theatre. Have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thick. All in favor? And Councillor Chalmers, I will assume that you're in favor. Excellent, thank you. We have an amendment to the agenda, and this is due to some new information that's come to staff, and the amendment is to remove item 11.3. So if there is no objection from council to adopting the agenda with the amendment to remove item 11.3, I will move adoption. Seeing no objection. Councillor Thick, do you have adoption? Or do you have okay, this is just, and this is by unanimous consent. So this is just a technicality where unless there's a specific reason council objects, then we will move by unanimous consent. So that has been moved, seeing no objection. So now we're moving to the public comment on agenda items.
Excuse me, Mayor Law, we can approve the consent agenda. Next on the agenda, please.
Oh, did I not do that?
I think we adopted the agenda and then we just need to do the consent agenda resolution.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Right, very good. Okay, I just put them together. I was thinking that was a consent agenda. If there's no objection to adopting the consent agenda as noted on our agenda, I will move adoption. Seeing no objection, the consent agenda is adopted. Thank you, Ms. Best. Now we can move on to public comment on agenda items. And for clarity, this is public comment only for the regular council agenda. The public hearing submissions will be called during the public hearing. Do we have any comment?
Thank you, Mayor Law. We don't have any requests for the regular council meeting, but I will call once. And if you are in the audience as an attendee in this meeting, please use the Q&A function at the bottom to submit a comment on the agenda items for the regular council meeting. And then I will call twice. And still seeing none, I'm going to call thrice. And there has been no requests for comment. Thank you.
Super. Okay, move on to the mayor's report. Just finished a local government roundtable hosted by our Minister of Municipal Affairs, our MLA Josie Osborne, and Murray Rankin. And there was over 44 mayors and chairs present, and the conversation centered around local government efforts towards reconciliation. It was an excellent insight into what municipalities and regional districts are doing across the island. It was fantastic and very profitable. And on that note, I do want to note that we had a community roundtable with a small select group from Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations, West Coast Hospitality Association, Tofino Resort Payers Association, Chamber of Commerce, and Tourism Tofino. And that was a facilitated discussion based around discussing wastewater treatment plant debt servicing and also the use of MRDT for wastewater treatment plant debt servicing. And it was a great meeting. And we'll see how that goes. The discussion was good and ended on a very, very good note with hopefully some good news following. Moving right along, we have delegations. And our first delegate is Daniel Seland, Chief Administrative Officer, Alberni Tla-o-qui-aht Regional District. Excited to have Mr. Seland here. I'll turn it over to you, Nikki.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We've just invited Mr. Seland onto the panelists. So if he just turns on his camera and unmics, he has 10 minutes to address our community. Thank you.
Thank you. It's showing audio is working, so that's fantastic. Thank you for receiving me today, Mayor and Council. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet you, and that is the intent of my delegation tonight is just to reach out and connect. I do also want to acknowledge that I too, even though I'm Zooming, I am enjoying being on the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht Nation, and really appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here. As you said, you know my name, and I am the new Chief Administrative Officer for the Alberni Tla-o-qui-aht Regional District. I'm in the process right now, after 3 weeks of being on the job, of still ramping up and learning all the ins and outs and nuances. And I'm actually here on the West Coast today and tomorrow, and mainly reaching out and meeting face-to-face wherever possible with the various members of our federation, and appreciated the fact that so many people have made time for me over the past few days. I do want to take the opportunity just to flag that 2022 is going to be a busy year for all of us, and Tofino as part of the federation, which makes up the ACRD, is part of a number of initiatives that we're working on together. We do have the introduction of the Curbside Recycling service that's aimed for launching in 2022. And with that, we are also going to be doing some upgrades to the West Coast landfill. These upgrades include a number of different areas for triage of various materials, as we're going to be accepting separated materials, recycling garbage and organics. And of course, with that as well is going to be an important upgrade to the landfill treatment leachate system that's going to be taking place at the landfill property. We also have the West Coast Transit. West Coast Transit is an initiative that started before my arrival, and due to COVID has been delayed. With any luck, we should be implementing the West Coast Transit in the fall of 2022. And of course, we're all of us continue to monitor what happens with COVID, as that impacts our timelines for a number of implementations. But with a bit of good fortune, we should be on track in the fall of 2022. Our airport, the Long Beach Airport, is an area of a lot of discussion and a lot of potential. And I'm pleased to say that as an airport, it continues to meet all the compliance. We did have an independent audit of the airport in 2021, and I'm pleased to say that we are fully compliant, which is important. We did receive an ACAP provincial grant, and for that grant is going to be for the funding of increased or improved fire flow at the airport. And so that's a project that will be funded through the province and is anticipated to start in 2022. We're also currently working on our obstacle remediation, and that's going to continue into January. And that's just to ensure that for any aviation craft coming into the airport, that they have a clear approach, and if they have a missed approach, they have a clear exit as well without any obstacles. Typically, treetops are the obstacles that we're talking about. Another big block for us to discuss starting in January of 2022 is the dispersed camping. It's an area of ongoing concern in the region, and the ACRD is leading the facilitation of the western half of the ACRD to look at various options and how we can collaborate to resolve the issue that continues to take place typically in the summer. But we've certainly seen an increase in the dispersed camping with COVID. Last but not least is the ACRD did complete the housing needs study. And so we're pleased with the outcome of that. And the next steps is going to be ACRD staff are going to be reaching out to their counterparts and looking at the implementation of those various housing elements. And of course, we'll be looking for ways where we can actually work collaboratively to start addressing some of the many housing needs that we have in the greater region. I don't know if council has any questions for me, but that's all I had for today. Was just an introduction, and if I can answer any questions, I'll do that now.
Super. We don't usually ask questions during a delegation, but if I ask for a motion of council, if council would like to ask Mr. Ceylan, then I can do that. Would council like to ask Mr. Ceylan questions or make comments? I don't think, doesn't look like it, but I would like to make a comment that it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming, and council and staff very much look forward to working with you and the ACRD. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a great night.
Super. Well, then we will move right along to Delegation 8.2. Bridget Reichert, owner of Tofino Highlands. Ms. Reichert, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I've just invited you, Ms. Reichert, onto the panelist. So we'll just see if your sound and video is working. Perfect.
Hello.
May I ask you, do you have any other presenters that are speaking as well, or?
I'll be speaking on behalf of our crew.
Okay, great.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Bridget Reichert. I am a Tofino business owner in the accommodation world, and I'm really excited to speak with you guys for the next 10 minutes about a residential development that we have been working on. And I'm going to share my screen just for a nice visual of what it is. Everyone can see this okay? Give me a nod. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to go full screen. So working in the accommodation world is lovely. It's great. Personally, I have been trying to live in Tofino for quite some time. I think we all know some of the hangups there, and was really excited to work with a few other people on a piece of land that we've acquired and have some big dreams for. So it's a residential development, Tofino Highlands. The piece of land is 711 and 721 Campbell. You guys may be familiar with it as you drive by and see a very steep driveway, you know, that nice, lovely old growth cedars. It is 2 lots side by side. Currently, both are zoned as R1 and roughly 1.1 acres entirety. Definitely like some sweeping slopes, and it's just bare land right now. So we, you know, my own needs and dreams and wants to be living in Tofino, originally purchased this with 2 others, you know, dreaming of a home for myself, and, you know, with some of the constraints of the the site itself, we started kind of thinking outside of the box and knowing some of the hangups that Tofino faces with residential, homes. We started thinking a little bit bigger. It's a lot of land. It's very close to town. What else could we do with it? So thinking outside of the box to kind of work on a little development. So we have a goal to develop a very unique multifamily residential living experience between the old growth, keeping the old growth and little ocean peak view views, adapting to the current market needs, addressing that missing middle. So someone like myself that is a business owner and has nowhere where I could buy and live, working with smaller footprints. So just really efficient design, maximizing the topography, and keeping within the beautiful nature that the site already provides. And obviously working with some bike and surf storage and shared outdoor spaces. So those are our development goals, which we did a ton of research on the OCP, and we dug into kind of what Tofino is looking for and what council is looking for and what will really serve the community, and really aligned with everything that you guys are putting forward. So we really want to build something very authentic, true to Tofino, promoting the well-being of the community, housing for all, and it will help sustain some of these people that just like have nowhere to live and are really contributing to the community. We've pulled the demographics. We looked in at this. We're very interested in, the bike versus car issue, as parking will be definitely a consideration that we've looked at for this project, and really looking at the age and the living space, like the one person living, one family, one little bucket of people. So looking closely at the demographics to help kind of gear our target market and who we would really be creating homes for. So really looking for people that enjoy living and working in the outdoors. They want to be somewhere close, within this region, very open and efficient floor spaces, whether single, married, young families, just like a really rough gauge, like essentially that missing middle, hitting the gap between some of that U-Wood complex that was very successful, and then the multi-million-dollar homes that that middle space we're really looking at. So we've done a lot of working with the topography and assessing the trees and working with arborists and really starting to learn the site and what we can do to help maximize living space and also maintain the forestry and the old growth cedars that are there. So we've come up with this proposed site, which would be, we're looking to combine the two lots and work with a comprehensive development zoning to facilitate 16 units with one parking stall per unit. And with this site plan, it's designed to, maintain the old growth where possible, look at the mountain views, working with 16 vehicles. And then we have, obviously, access was a point of contention on this property, as it is quite a steep slope, and the existing driveway is not to code. So we looked at some creative ideas, and we came back with a funicular. And so it's a very commonly used cable system. Whistler, Sunshine Coast, interior Europe, everybody has access to this, and it's a very beautiful, here I'll show you this. So it's a cable which would go from bottom to top, moves up and down in about 45 seconds, very quiet, very easy on the environment, on the topography that's already existing, and then also have access through a staircase. So the proposed 3D perspective would be just like very unique builds, like into the slope and within the existing trees and all the beauty of the site existing. So that's just a rough 3D perspective of it. This is a few little images of some of the cable and just how easy, low impact it is. So designed within the topography. We're looking at the upper units, 8 upper units and 8 lower units. So range of sizes from 14 to 16 feet, 16 parking stalls, and built around the natural landscape. So I can't stress that enough about how we really did look at how we can maximize how many buildings can be placed on this site with maintaining some of the beautiful forestry that's already existing, and really working on maximizing the space in smaller footprints. Our goal would obviously be to provide the amenities, the surf and bike storage, communal spaces, outdoor spaces, and really offer a very unique living environment for Tofino. And just a rundown of some of my amazing partners that I have on board, James King and Mark Abma, friends that I've worked with before on a previous development. On the marketing side, they have a very broad experience in development. And Mike Alecki is our architect and partner, who is a Tofino local. So it feels very near and dear and true to what we're trying to create within this community. And then myself. So the 4 of us together are working on this project, and we're really excited to hear feedback and excited to move forward. And I hope that that's within 10 minutes. I think that's good. Thank you so much for your time. I want to ask for questions, but I heard that that's not what we're allowed to do.
In this case, Ms. Reichert, there's, I think there'll be a good time for questions during the actual staff presentation and report. I think that's probably the most appropriate time for this, but.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't usually open up delegations for questions and comments without a council motion.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for your presentation.
Stop share.
Okay. We can move on to correspondence. We've got a few minutes here before 5 o'clock, before our public hearings start. 9.1, we have correspondence from Laura McDonald, President of Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. And this letter is a letter of opposition to business license fee increases. And I believe we have some more info from our Manager of Corporate Services, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I just wanted to inform Council that staff has been in contact with Laura as well as Jen Dart from the Chamber in discussions with this letter and discussing what the process is for this specific bylaw. And I did want to also reiterate that the intention of this bylaw amendment was just to get the 2022 fees set in place for the beginning of January 1st. And that if Council chooses to do the full bylaw rewrite in the new year, then we will engage the Chamber, of course, through that process. But the thing that I would like to point out for the community and Council is that if people were to pay their business license fees before the January 1st, 2022, they are still going to pay the former fee if the bylaw is adopted. So if those business license renewal individuals want to have the old fee from right now, and they can pay their business license fee for 2022 right now and not wait till January 1st, which is actually the deadline for payment for the next year.
Thank you for that. I have nothing further to comment unless Council would like to comment on this particular correspondence. Okay. Now, we have presentations and reports. We have zoning amendment application for 711 and 721 Campbell Street. Now, the thing is, we've got about 6 minutes until 5 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to you, Mr. Thick, noting that we may have to stop discussions and recess for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was going to note that we only have about 5 minutes. I would estimate that my presentation takes about 7 or 8 minutes, and then there may be some discussion from Council. So I'm wondering, this would be at the discretion of the manager of corporate services or perhaps the CAO, but if it would be better to take a short recess just to ensure the continuity of the report and discussion, or if it would be best for me to begin the report immediately.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind some advice from staff on this one.
Thank you. We do post the public hearing for 5 o'clock, so we definitely shouldn't start before then. A recess is amenable, just to keep everything fresh. We do have some public entering for the public viewing gallery right now that we would like to address. So if council wouldn't mind, just a few minute recess and we can begin the public hearing exactly at 5 o'clock. And that pre-recess time gives the mayor opportunity to reiterate how to participate for the public hearing. Because this is the first public hearing we've had in many years, and the first electronic one in this regard. So we do want to take it slow and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak.
Okay, then I'll move recess for the regular council meeting now. And between now and 5 o'clock, I will use that time to remind attendees for the public hearing how to get on and how to participate. So if no objection to moving recess, excellent. So for those people attending the public hearing, it will start at 5 o'clock. Just a note, there are 2 public hearings going on. The first of the 2 is for 1275 Mackenzie Beach Road, which is a Mackenzie Beach Resort application. The second zoning bylaw is for the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust application for Olson Road, and that's 1302 Olson Road. Anybody wishing to make a presentation at the regular meeting, at the public hearing, will be able to use the Zoom question and answer function in the meeting. Anybody requesting to make representation at the public hearing will have to start with a name, address, and which agenda item, which public hearing the person will be speaking to. And we have 2, and some people may come and go and may enter in at various times. So this is a must. If people forget to state their name or address, I'll just kindly remind them. There is a viewing gallery at the Clayoquot Sound Community Theatre. It is for viewing only. So people that are viewing the public hearings in the Clayoquot Sound Community Theatre will not be able to speak to the hearing. Again, to speak to the hearing, it's through Zoom, tofino.ca/meetings, and sign up with the question and answer function in the Zoom app. Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I'm looking for councillors' attendance. Excellent. And so I'm calling this public hearing to order. And I move that pursuant to Section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229, 2016, as amended, the December 14, 2021 public hearing be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Municipal Hall, 161 3rd Street in Tofino, BC. I do have a note that Councillor Chalmers, due to medical condition, is present but will be keeping her screen off unless she has a question, comment, or to vote on something or at the request of the chair. As Councillor Chalmers is present with her screen off. And this is District of Tofino Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1273, 2019. This is for 1101 Pacific Rim Highway. I have a statement from the chair. And again, this is for zoning amendment bylaw number 1273, 2019. 1101 Pacific Rim Highway. This public hearing is being held to receive and consider submissions regarding proposed District of Tofino Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1273, 2019, which proposes to rezone a portion of the subject property to facilitate the sanctioning and redevelopment of the existing campground, expand the number of permitted tent sites, define certain permitted commercial activities, and limit the overall density of permitted tourism accommodation units. Anyone who believes their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will have an opportunity to be heard either by speaking directly at this hearing or through a representative or by submitting written comments. No one will be prevented or discouraged from making their views known. However, it is important that speakers restrict their comments to only those matters contained in the proposed bylaw. As chair, it is my responsibility to ensure that this restriction is honored. No decision will be made at this hearing, as the entire proceedings will be considered by District of Tofino Council at a subsequent meeting. Council's function today is to listen to the views of the public. Council's function is not to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. However, council members may ask questions of individual speakers to clarify what is being said. This public hearing is the final opportunity for public to comment either their support or opposition or neutral stance on the proposed bylaw. Council is not permitted to receive further submissions once we have closed the hearing. So I do want to say that again. This is the final opportunity for public input into this rezoning. After this, council will not be able to speak to or receive any further information from the public. Documents received by council relating to the proposed bylaw are available for review in the public hearing document book that was previously available in the district office and online. It is currently available at www.tofino.ca/development. Written comments submitted during the hearing will be added to the public hearing document book. If you submitted written comments during the notice period, you are not required to restate your views verbally today. Personal information such as names and addresses are directly related to Council's consideration of the effects of the proposed bylaw and are being collected under Section 26C of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions about how personal information will be used or disclosed can be addressed to the District of Tofino Manager of Corporate Services. To maintain order and to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, our rules of procedure are as follows. To sign up to address council with your comment, open the Zoom question and answer function window in the webinar controls from your device. Click on Ask a Question tab and type in your full legal name and address. Do not type your comment. A staff member will respond and add your name to the speakers list. The chair will call upon each speaker when it is their turn to comment. Speakers will be unmuted for up to 5 minutes. However, your video function will not be permitted. So again, we will be able to hear comments, but we will not be able to see you. Speakers must limit remarks and comments to matters contained in the proposed bylaw only. After everyone has spoken once, those wishing to speak again will have an opportunity to sign up again. So I will call once, twice, and then thrice. To clarify, council members may ask questions of speakers to clarify what has been said. However, no other replies, questions, rebuttals, or additional submissions will be heard without the chair's permission. So I'm going to now read a proposed summary, or sorry, a summary of the proposed bylaw. District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1273/2019 proposes to rezone a portion of the subject property from Tourist Commercial District C5 and Small Holdings District A1 to Mackenzie Beach Resort Comprehensive Development Zone, CDMBR. The proposed amendment would facilitate the sanctioning and redevelopment of the existing campground, expand the number of permitted tent sites, define certain permitted commercial activities, and limit the overall density of permitted tourism accommodation units. The amendment bylaw received first reading on December 10th, 2019, second reading on September 28th, 2021. This public hearing was advertised in the December 1st, 2021 and December 8th, 2021 editions of the Westerly News and posted on the district notice board and website. Notices were mailed and hand-delivered to properties within 60 meters radius of the property on November 26, 2021. And again, this is for 1273, bylaw 1273. What else can we say? There is on the agenda, we have a public notice summary, and moving down to item 3.5, we have related documents, which includes appendixes, first readings, various appendixes, etc. Moving down to 3.6, we have written submissions received during the notice period. And at this point, I'm going to call Mr. Thick for a summary of correspondence.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The submissions received during the notice period, which ended December 13th, 2021 at noon, that's yesterday at noon, include 3 letters in opposition to the development and no letters of support. One submission was also received after the close of the notice period.
Sorry, Mr. Thick, I'm just going to sort of interrupt with you. My sound is fairly poor for your mic, and I missed the number of letters in support.
Sure, perhaps, but is it a little bit better if I hold it closer to my mouth?
Not really. It seems a little bit computerized. I just want to make sure that people can hear you very clearly. Perhaps it's your mic.
Yeah, it could be. Hang on one second. Let me just unplug my headphones and I'll just speak directly into the computer. One moment.
Super. No worries. We'll get it to... I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to hear clearly.
Thanks, Mayor Law. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Much better. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Thick.
Okay, thank you. So the submissions received during the notice period, which ended December 13th, 2021 at noon, include 3 letters in opposition to the development. That's 3 letters in opposition and no letters of support. And one submission was also received after the close of the notice period. It's been included in the online document package that's available to read online at tofino.ca/development and was also made available at the front desk of the municipal office. And it was provided basically general comments on the development. No other submissions were received. I think it's worth noting that the notice period that ended yesterday at noon is essentially established by district staff. Mostly we try to get submissions in by that point in order for us to prepare the public hearing document book. However, receiving submissions after that point is also, those are typically also included in the public hearing document book. No other submissions were received that need to be announced at this point.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.3. I believe there is no presentation. However, Mr. Thick, I think you have a brief statement.
Yes, staff have not prepared a presentation for this public hearing. All information that's related to the application, including notifications, staff reports, information from the applicant, and all public submissions have been included in the public hearing book that's available online at tofino.ca/development. So we have no presentation at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thick. Well, without further ado, then I think we can move into item 3.8, which is public input. And so I would encourage people that would like to speak to this bylaw. And again, I will just reiterate that this is for the Mackenzie Beach Resort rezoning application. That to sign up in the Zoom app under the question and answer option. I'm going to call once. Staff will put presenters on a list, and we will go down the list, and I will give up to 5 minutes for each speaker. Just encourage speakers to limit their comments to this application. Calling once.
Thank you, Mayor Law. There have been no requests to submit for this bylaw.
Then I will count to 10 in my head and call twice.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We still have not received any requests for submissions.
Then I will do it again and call thrice.
And it looks like there are no requests for submissions for the public input period.
Okay, that then concludes the public input into this rezoning application. Then we will move on to the District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1302/2020 for 301 Olson Road. And whoever's been here for the past 10 minutes will realize that I read a statement from the chair. Well, I'm going to do it again, but this time for this particular rezoning. Just hold on a sec. Again, this is a statement from the chair for the public hearing regarding the District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1302/2020. This public hearing is being held to receive and consider submissions regarding proposed District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1302/2020, which proposes to rezone the subject property to facilitate an institutional development with office space, community educational space, and up to 2 residential units on the subject property. Anyone who believes their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will have an opportunity to be heard either by speaking directly at this meeting or through a representative or by submitting written comments. No one will be prevented or discouraged from making their views known. However, it is important that speakers restrict their comments to only those matters contained in the proposed bylaw. As chair, it is my responsibility to ensure that this restriction is honored. No decision will be made at this hearing, as the entire proceedings will be considered by District of Tofino Council at a subsequent meeting. Council's function today is to listen to the views of the public, not to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. However, council members may ask questions of individual speakers to clarify what is being said. This public hearing is the final opportunity for the public to comment either their support, opposition, or neutral comments on the proposed bylaw. Council is not permitted to receive further submissions once we have closed the hearing, and that is either verbal or written or any other form of submissions. Documents received by council related to the proposed bylaw are available for review in the public hearing document book that was previously available in the District of Tofino office and online. It is currently available at www.tofino.ca/development. Written comments submitted during the hearing will be added to the public hearing document book. If you submitted written comments during the notice period, you are not required to restate your views verbally today. Personal information such as names and addresses are directly related to council's consideration of the effects of the proposed bylaw and are being collected under Section 26C of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions about how personal information will be used or disclosed can be addressed to the District of Tofino Manager of Corporate Services. To maintain order and to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, our rules of procedure are as follows. To sign up to address council with your comment, open the Zoom question and answer function window in the webinar controls from your device. Click on Ask a Question and type in your full legal name and address. Do not type your comment. A staff member will respond and add your name to the speakers list. The chair will call upon each speaker when it is their turn to comment. Speakers will be unmuted for up to 5 minutes. However, your video function will not be permitted. Council will be able to hear you, but not see you. Speakers must limit remarks and comments to matters contained in the proposed bylaw only. After everyone has spoken once, those wishing to speak again will have an opportunity to sign up again. Again, I will call once for everybody to speak once. When that is through, I'll call twice, which will allow speakers to speak twice. And then finally, I will call thrice before the conclusion of the hearing. And again, to clarify, council members may ask questions of speakers to clarify what has been said. However, no other replies, questions, rebuttals, or additional submissions will be heard without the chair's permission. And here we go. We have a proposed bylaw summary. And this is for District of Tofino Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1302-2020. District of Tofino Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1302-2020 proposes to rezone the subject property from two-family residential district R2 to CBT Institutional Comprehensive Development Zone, CBT. The proposed amendment would facilitate an institutional development with office space, community/educational space, and up to 2 residential units on the property. The amended bylaw received first reading on December 8th, 2020, and second reading on September 28th, 2021. The public hearing was advertised in the December 1st, 2021 and December 8th, 2021 editions of the Westerly News and posted on the district notice board and website. Notices were mailed and hand-delivered to properties within 60-meter radius of the property on November 26, 2021. Let's see, and I'm just going down the agenda here. We have 4.3 proposed bylaw, District of Tofino Amendment Bylaw, explanation of the bylaw, and we have a notice of public notice summary, and we have related documents, and there's a list under item 4.5 of the related documents to the Olson Road application. Now we have 4.6 written submissions received during the notice period, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Theg.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Hello again, Mayor and Council. Submissions received during the notice period ending December 13th, 2021 at noon, that's yesterday at noon, include 4 letters in opposition to the development, 33 letters of support, and 4 letters offering general comment on the application. After the close of the notice period, 4 submissions were received opposing the development and 6 submissions were received in support of the development. All of these submissions have been included in the online document package, which is available at tofino.ca/development. No other submissions have been received.
Excuse me, Mayor Law, you're muted still.
Thanks. I even had a screen that popped up that said I was muted. My computer's very smart. So I do have a comment actually on something that came up in the written submissions, and that was a suggestion or allegation that within council there was a possibility of conflict of interest. And we do take this very seriously, and it is the stance of Mayor, Council, and staff that the letter writer was mistaken, and we found no conflict of interest. Moving on, we have 4.7. Staff believe there is no presentation again, but there is a chance for staff to offer a brief statement.
Thank you again, Mayor Law. That's correct. Staff have not prepared a presentation for this public hearing, as all the information related to the application, including the notification, staff reports, information from the applicant, and all public submissions related to the public hearing have been included in the public hearing book and information package that's available at tofino.ca/development.
Thank you, Mr. Thick. Then without further ado, I'm going to move on to item 4.8, which is public input. Now I take it there will be some public input. So Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do have 5 speakers requesting. So I'm going to start with the first submission or request. I'll call by name, and please, when I call your name, I will hand you over to Mayor Law as the chair to facilitate the speaker list. But as a reminder to all people that you must state your full name and your address for the public record, because this is a public hearing and a public process. So we must have your name and your address on the record. So the first speaker we have is Jennifer Price Francis. So Jennifer, I'm just going to turn on your speaking ability. And as another reminder, we allow for 5 minutes per speaker. So we have about 36 people in this attendee list. So just give me one moment here to find you on the list here, Jennifer.
Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name, oh, sorry.
Well, go ahead. I'm just letting you know that I'm starting, and you have the floor. Name, address, and the bylaw that you're speaking to.
Thank you, Mayor Law. My name is Jennifer Price Francis, and I live at 1083 Pacific Rim Highway in Tofino. And I am here to show my strong support for the proposed CBT Center. Commenting directly on the specifics of the bylaw, I think the center is a good fit for the location. It's actually located in the village designation, which if you look at the OCP, supports future development that's focused on the expansion of communal services and retail, offices and workspaces, and high density residential housing, which I think that fits with the proposed center. The center also has exceeded parking requirements. They've adjusted their designs to consider the Crab Dock neighborhood requests from the previous meetings, and they've provided 2 housing units. And they also support the village OCP. If you look at 5.2.2 number 7, it says encourages future developments that include semi-public spaces with southern exposures, which they've done with patios and decks. Number 8 says they ensure that parking areas for future development along Campbell and Main Street, which they've done. They've actually exceeded that. Also, number 17, in commercial aspects, they've encouraged the development of office and live workspaces. This is going to provide a bunch of different office spaces and really critical meeting areas. They also have supported the Crab Dock neighborhood by listening to what the residents' concerns were and implementing that into their design. And they've also, on number 22, promoted compact community development. So I think in terms of the OCP, they've really gone above and beyond trying to follow suit for the bylaw. And also, I think, the center in itself will be a critical addition to our community. This community hub will not only showcase our unique UNESCO Biosphere, which draws 1 million+ visitors every year, but also, more importantly, provides critically needed community meeting and conference spaces, as well as critically needed housing. The CBT supports over $150,000 in grants to this region, our region, every single year, plus scholarships, the neighborhood small grants, and provides a regional research hub that benefits all people of our region for now and into the future. So again, I'd like to say that I'd strongly support and encourage the council to approve this bylaw amendment. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Bryce Francis. And I will not look to council for questions for clarity unless indicated by council. So if councillors do have a question to ask a presenter for clarity, then I would just ask you put your electronic hand up or wave frantically at me. So moving right along, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker on the list is Brooke Wood.
Hello, Mayor, Law, and Council. Am I good to go?
You're good to go. 5 minutes, and please state your name, address, and the
Bylaw. Got it. Thanks, Chen. So my name is Brooke Wood, and my address is 1075 Pacific Rim Highway, and I am speaking for the rezoning for the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust. Really thankful and privileged to be here today. I want to acknowledge that I am a settler on Tla-o-qui-aht territory and feel really honored to live, work, and play here. In regards to the rezoning, I think it's timely. I think it meets the goals of the council around reconciliation and moving forward in a good way for our communities. We are settlers here, and I am staff at the CBT, and I will acknowledge that, but I also want to acknowledge I'm a community member, a mom of 2 young boys who I'm proud to raise here. And I have been here 20 years, and I know I'm not a local yet, 10 more years for that, but I feel strongly that I would be a good neighbor. And I just want to acknowledge that it would be me. You know, we're not talking strangers from Vancouver. We're talking people like me who was fortunate to come here and move forward in my career, start off in hospitality and get to work fulfilling jobs. And I think the goal for our future of our youth and of Tofino is to have some more of these in a diversified economy, and having an opportunity in office space is key to that, as well as having education. And with the current zoning as residential, which hasn't been able to move forward, I strongly support the zoning to institutional as well as the low density housing in order to also offer and help offset some of the needs of the hospital and first responders with that. It's a big need in our community. So I don't need to take a whole 5 minutes, and I really want to thank you and thank everyone that's listening, and hope the rest of the meeting goes well. See ya.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Moving along, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker on the list is Stephanie Hughes. Just hold for one moment while I turn Stephanie's mic on. Okay.
Hi, Ms. Hughes. Please state your name, address, and the bylaw you're going to speak to.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Stephanie Hughes, 310 Lone Cone Road, Tofino, British Columbia. And I am speaking to the bylaw application by the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust for rezoning. And I would like to state that I'm in opposition to this proposal. The proposed building size and activities to take place on said location far exceeds the lot size. The lot has been previously identified by the district as appropriate for development for a duplex. The building proposal put forward by the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust far exceeds the size, scope, and function of this lot and the possible potential negative impacts to the neighborhood and inability for the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust to deliver their scope of programming must be considered by Mayor and Council. And I wanted to just thank you for listening to these comments, and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. Moving right along, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker on the list is Mr. Ray Thorogood. One moment.
Mr. Thorogood, are you on there?
I think so.
Okay, you go ahead. State your name, address, and the bylaw you're going to speak to.
Great, thank you. My name is Ray Thorogood. I live at 310 Olson Road in Tofino. I'm not sure of the bylaw number, but it's in reference to the CBT application for rezoning. 30 years ago in 1991, my wife and I purchased a lot on Olson Road. At that time, there were 12 lots on the street, 8 of which already had residences on them. Over the years, 3 more lots, including ours, were developed and had homes built on them as per their zoning. One undeveloped lot, leaving one undeveloped lot on the street, and that's the one in reference today, 301 Olson Road. The area was designated as the Crab Dock neighborhood. As you come into Tofino, the next designation is the Gateway at Marina West, 2 lots over, and then the downtown core at 4th and Campbell. Over the years, I recall 2 attempts to have this particular lot at the top of Olson Road rezoned from R2. Both times, councils, in their wisdom, have denied these applications. The CBT has met a few times with the residents of Olson Road in person and virtually about their wanting to change the zoning and build on the lot. Since the residents of Olson Road have been made aware of this application, each and every resident have made it known to the CBT and to mayor and council that we are all opposed to it. The intersection is already a danger, particularly for turning left off of Olson Road. The volume of traffic has increased immensely over the years. Add to it the increase in bicycle, pedestrian, and joggers on the multi-use path simply adds to the danger for everyone. The reference about the 2 apartments, the information from the CBT to the residents, I believe, is that the 2 apartments proposed in this building development is that they will be for guest speakers, consultants for the CBT. They're not going to be for the general public. So with the 2 previous applications having been turned down, my question to council is what makes this attempt to rezone different from previous ones? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker on the list is Denise Kashowski. One moment, please. Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Kashowski. 5 minutes, please state your name, address, and the bylaw.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Denise Kashowski. I live at 411 Neal Street in Tofino, and I'm wanting to comment on the rezoning of 301 Olson Road for the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust development. I just want to currently acknowledge today I am speaking to you from the unceded traditional territory of Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations. I've been a resident of this community for approximately 15 years, and I have also volunteered with the CBT for over 10 years, primarily on the Research and Education Committee. And I also sit as an appointed alternate non-voting advisor on behalf of Fisheries and Oceans Canada on the CBT. But I wanted to speak today as a resident of Tofino and say that I strongly support the rezoning of the property located at 301 Olson Road. I've been really fortunate to have been directly involved with and seen firsthand and also behind the scenes of all the amazing work that the CBT has done to support community needs, research, and other local initiatives through grants and other supports. The rezoning of the lot that's owned by the CBT will allow the vision of the Biosphere Center to be realized. And this vision has been created in a thoughtful, forward-thinking, transparent, and inclusive process with input from many community members, including those who are in the immediate vicinity of the project. And also importantly, support from the Indigenous communities and leadership within the Biosphere region. The CBT needs a permanent home, and this center will provide that, in addition to a multi-use space for nonprofit education and cultural organizations and First Nations within the Biosphere. It will address the urgent community need for accessible, affordable, and safe space to deliver new programs and initiatives, as well as offering rental housing. This is going to positively impact our community health and vitality. This proposed development is an incredible opportunity at this location. Not only is it visible, it's accessible and welcoming to many by land through various transportation modes, but it's also accessible via water from the more remote Indigenous communities. I think this is an opportunity for this council to support community spaces and positive, socially responsible development. And it also allows the council to show support and commitment for designation as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. I don't know of any other organization or developer that would have put as much thought, heart, and consultation into this use of space for everyone to benefit in the community. I'm proud of the work that the CBT has done throughout my time here and would jump at the opportunity to have them as my neighbor. I want to thank you for allowing me to have this input, and I hope that the council fully considers the entire Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere community and the benefit of this development in their decision on rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kashowski. Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker is Christopher Seitcher. Forgive me if that's not how you pronounce your name. A moment, please.
Mr. Seitcher.
Hello, hello.
Please, just a reminder, I'll remind everybody, please state your name, your address, and the bylaw you're speaking to.
Okay, my name is Chris Seitcher. I live 74 Wickeninish in Taisanis. One of the village. I am Tla-o-qui-aht. My father is Hiawatha, one of the hereditary chiefs of Tla-o-qui-aht, and kind of wanted to start it off by saying, like welcome, welcome everyone here to, the Tla-o-qui-aht territory, because this is where I'm from, this is who I am, and this is where I belong. And I wanted to speak on supporting the Cbt rezoning. So I moved here in 2009. And ever since then, I started to notice it and asking these questions like, what's missing? What's missing? And there's no representations of Tla-o-qui-aht or First Nations in Tofino. And there's a lot of surf shops, a lot of hotels and coffee shops and gift shops. And there's nothing culturally safe. A few years ago, I'm one of the guys that started the men's group that we have here. And we started off as a small group of like trying to create a safe space. And the only people that really supported financially was CBT. They supported us and we were able to apply for grants. We created a sauna style sweat lodge to provide a safe space for our people to go to and to do a culturally safe space. And then since then, I've been working with like one of the local doctors and trying to create that at the hospital, trying to create a culturally safe space for our people, not just for our people, but for everyone. And ever since then, it's just been kind of moving forward in a good way. And like today I had to go do, today I did a brushing for one of the local businesses. And we did it in a small room. And one of the things that I'm supporting the CBT is because, they're including the Tla-o-qui-aht, they're including the First Nations, they're including the 5 nations that live around Tofino and Iqaluit. And, there's no place for us to go to do these ceremonies, to listen, to heal, and to learn other people's cultures, right? And during the summer, it's very busy. Like one of the guys was saying earlier, is like the traffic is heavy, is because we get these visitors and tourists, and all these hotels are pretty much booked. And for our friends and healers, there's no place for them to stay, because it's not just for CBT is not just for what I'm trying to say is that CBT is for everyone, because they're not there for profit. They're there for a community. They're there for healing, come together, and sharing their space. Because when I do ceremonies, honestly, like there's nowhere for me to go to. I can't do it like in public, but there's no culturally safe space. And right now I kind of do it, in either on the reserve, go to the beach. But in reality, it's like, if I feel if this doesn't go forward, you're saying to all the people saying no to all the people that's accessing the services and the help, because I'm about healing. I'm about culture, I'm about ceremonies, and I'm still going to continue working with them, with CBT, and there's other things that we're working on and trying to create other safe spaces, not just at CBT, but it's basically what I'm trying to say is that CBT is, I don't know, I'm kind of like losing my words, but mainly it's just like, I'm about healing. There's so much things that happens in our community, and some of it is violence, and like sexual abuse, deaths, and murders, and like go and do these ceremonies just to help guide them, help them heal. And then sometimes people just have to rent, like like just the other day, I think I did a burning ceremony, not the other day, sorry, it was like Chesterman's Beach.
Mr. Seitcher, I know this is a great topic for you, but I'm just going to give you a 30-second warning.
Okay. So I'm in support with the building of CBT. They're there for the people. They're there for the 5 nations around Tofino. They're there for the the community, right? And creating that safe space for everyone to either learn or to heal. And I see the building a healing place.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seitcher. Sorry here.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I understand you're fixing your alarm, so I will just move to the next speaker, which is Mrs. Camilla Thorogood. We also know, Mrs. Thorogood, you're in the viewing gallery right now, so if we could just ask you to step outside to reduce the amount of feedback that we may experience in the meeting, and I'm going to unmute you right now. And if you need some assistance, we'll just step out of the room here and help you out. Yeah, she's speaking. We can't hear her. So can you?
Ms.
Thank
Thorogood,
you.
Go ahead. Just note on my alarm while Ms. Thorogood's getting it. I know how to start it, but apparently I don't know how to stop it. So, Ms. Thorogood, when you're ready.
Just to let everyone know, our confidential secretary is just assisting Mrs. Thorogood with with her
Yep.
device. Just one moment, please.
Yeah, and just want to be clear to all the listeners, our goal is to allow everybody equal access to this public hearing. That is the purpose. And so I do have to limit people to 5 minutes. If they get close, I'll give them a warning. That is just to be fair to everybody. And we want this public hearing to be accessible, fair, and equal. And we very much
There we
appreciate
go.
hearing public comments.
Yes, okay. Now give that a try.
Hello,
Ms. Thorogood, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name, your address, and the bylaw you're referring to.
it's Camilla Thorogood. I live at 310 Olson Road, Tofino, and I'm referring to the Cbt rezoning. There are two things I'd like to say right off the bat, is every single one of us on Olson Road, we're in support of CBT. It's not against CBT. It's against the building on the lot at 301. And I just listened to Mr. Seitcher, and I have a question. There is a great deal of land at Tinwis that the Tla-o-qui-aht
Sorry, Miss Thorogood, I do have to, I just want to make sure, I just reiterate that to please comment on the application, that please refrain from discussing or rebutting a previous commentary at this time.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I just wanted you to know that the neighbors find the building and the footprint of the building just much too large. And there is a concern about the amount of traffic, foot traffic can be just as hazardous on that corner. We especially notice it in the summertime when the people are walking on the multi-use path. I think that's all I have to say. I've sent letters. We've given you our opinion. And again, we're not against the CBT. That is not what we mean. We're not in favor of its developing on Olson Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thorogood. Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. The next speaker and the final speaker on this list for the first call of speakers is Erica Golat. Golt, sorry. One moment.
Ms. Gold, please state your name, your address, and the bylaw you're referring to.
Hello, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Erica Gold. I live at 1119 Fellowship Drive, and my comments are in regard to the Olson Road rezoning. And I will let everyone know that I've done contract work through the CBT for a number of years, but I'm speaking more for myself today. And I really appreciate that so many are in support of the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust and the development of a Biosphere Center. But I more specifically wanted to comment on why I think that this particular rezoning should move ahead and why this particular development should also move ahead. I've worked with so many nonprofit and community organizations across the West Coast, and unfortunately, development in the Tofino area is really starting to push out a lot of those groups doing so much good in our community. They are lacking places, affordable and sufficient places to have office spaces, meeting spaces, self-welcoming and respectful places to work together. I know I work with the Tofino Culinary Guild, and we have far outgrown our location and have been scared multiple times of closing down because of losing a place. And I appreciate that no one necessarily likes any kind of construction in their neighborhood, but I don't think you could ask for better neighbors. The CBT, I've had a lot of insight into how much community consultation they have done and how much work they have done over years. This is certainly not the first location that has been considered or looked at or even hoped for. And so, you know, my comment is really just if we can't miss this opportunity. If we don't do this development now, I'm not really sure what other options we will have. Certainly nothing in the near future that would be affordable and could do so much good for our community and our organizations. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gold. Ms. Best, do we have anybody for the first go around?
Thank you, Mayor Law. That concludes the first call for submissions.
Okay, then I will call twice, and I will remind people that if they wish to speak again, if they've spoken once already, they may do that now. And I'm just going to count to 10 in my head, and I hear nothing from you, Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I see a hand from Mr. Thorogood, so I'm going to allow him to talk.
Mr. Thorogood, please, do it again. State your name, your address, and the bylaw you're referring to. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just my neighbor is out of town. It's Ben and Jamie Eggers at 321 Olson Road, and they've sent a letter, I believe, to mayor and council. I just want, if it's on the
Mr. Thorogood, I appreciate you're going to speak for Ben and Jamie. That's totally fine. I do just please say your name and and just a little note to self. I have not started your 5 minutes yet, but note to everybody, we are following the letter of the law, so that this public hearing will follow legislation, and we'll do it as best we can.
Yeah, Ray Thorogood, 310 Olson Road in Tofino. And my neighbors, Ben and Jamie Eggers, Eggers at 321 Olson Road. He's out of town right now, and he asked that I read his letter. Now, if council has received his letter, there's no need for me to repeat it. That's all I was going to ask, is confirmation that the letter has been received by mayor and council. If it has,
I think to be fair, because I do not have all the letters in front of me, just to be fair and make this process open, I can look to Ms. Best, or I can just simply ask you, Mr. Thorogood, to go ahead and read it, especially if there may be changes. So I would prefer that you read the letter out loud right now, just to make sure that we have it on record, that we are doing all we can to include Ben and Jamie.
Right. It was on the, sorry, thank you, Ms. Best. It was written on the 12th of December, and it's regarding proposed rezoning of for the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust. They state, we urge you to deny the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust application for the rezoning of 301 Olson Road. We trust this location. We consider this location a poor choice for an institution, corporate office, and event center of this magnitude, being both outside of downtown DPA core and within the heart of a character residential neighborhood. The following is presented as a list of pros and cons related to the proposed CBT development. The CBT, one, ownership of facility for the CBT allows a shift from rental to long-term ownership. Community center, creation of an additional community meeting place, cultural research and training center. And 3, dock access, good access to the crab dock to facilitate boat traffic access from the surrounding communities. On the cons, 1, inappropriate land use. Development of a community center, event center would be misaligned with the predominantly residential neighborhood. This would be far better suited in the downtown DPA between Campbell, Main Street, or the gateway zones. 2, insufficient parking. Olson Road and the surrounding areas lack the parking required to support an event center of this scale for 40 plus people. Material safety concerns. That's number 3. The resultant increased vehicular and pedestrian traffic on Olson Road would present a material safety concern given the high vehicle speeds on Campbell Street bend and the reduced visibility present at the top of Olson Road. Number 4, increased activity and noise. Olson Road is currently a quiet neighborhood and the residents value the privacy and solitude. The proposed development would bring increased vehicular and pedestrian traffic to the neighborhood, along with the elevated noise levels, negatively impacting the surrounding residents. Next, on the cons is excessive building mass. The proposed building mass, 101% floor space ratio to lot size, is far in excess of the rest of the Crab Dock neighborhood. And the final con being excessive lot coverage. Proposed 50% lot coverage is consistent with the adjacent lots zoned for a maximum of 15 to 30% for coverage.
Good. I'm just going to give you a 30-second.
Good, thanks. We, like the rest of the neighbors, consider there are far stronger reasons to deny this rezoning request than to approve it, and this development would be better suited within the downtown DPA core than in the residential neighborhood. And signed, yours truly, Ben and Jamie Eggers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. Turning to you, we are on the second call for comments.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do have a hand up from Adrian Mason, who's not submitted their name and address. So I will allow Adrian to speak, but I don't have the name and address yet. So please state that for the record.
Ms. Mason, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name, address, and the bylaw you're commenting on. And I see Ms. Mason is still on mute. Oh, there we go.
That was actually an error. I was just checking something, but while I'm here, I will I'll comment. My name is Adrian Mason. I live at 380 Gibson Street, and I'm commenting on the bylaw amendment for the construction of the CBT's Biosphere Center. I support the proposal for several reasons. First, that the CBT began consultation on this facility over 12 years ago, seeking input from people throughout the region to envision a facility with amenities that will be a legacy to our town for the decades to come. And based on the input of their staff, their board, and most importantly, the communities and the nonprofit organizations that they work with, they considered many locations, and as has been stated, you know, the options are fairly minimal, and this is one that they have landed on and purchased, and it would be an extreme shame to lose this opportunity for our region, for our community in particular as well, but also just for the region in general. It's an incredible asset, and I know the neighbors understand this. I acknowledge that. I want to state also that it's not a commercial enterprise. it's an institutional rezoning. So it's not like a store or a tourism operator or a restaurant with this constant traffic of people coming and going. Generally, they're offices, they're meeting spaces, maybe small community events. And I appreciate that the CBT has considered things such as ride sharing and shuttles and things like that, should there be larger events. So I think it's been really well envisioned as far as how to make the impact as low as possible for the neighbors. I understand the concerns over traffic in that corner. I've lived here over 30 years. I know that corner and the next one, Brown Rice Corner, are challenging at times, but there's been a traffic assessment that has been completed. It's on the MUP, which encourages biking and walking. And I understand there's going to be some improvements in that area. People have already mentioned access to the dock, which is of course really critical to the offshore communities who come to the area by boat. But I think because it's at the corner of Olsen and Campbell, it won't necessarily, unless people are really lost for some reason, drive a lot of traffic down the street. So I think for the neighbors, it will be during the construction, there'll be a lot of disruption, of course, like any construction. But most of the activity will be at that lot, right at the corner at the top of the road. So it's not like there's going to be lots of traffic driving up and down that road. So that's also, I think, something that I think helps mitigate some of the concerns. Yeah, so thank you. That's all I have to offer.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. I'll look to Ms. Best. We're on the second round of submissions.
Thank you, Mayor Law. There have been no submissions for the second round, so we may move to the third.
Okay, so I'm calling thrice.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor Law. We have two more. So the first I will call upon is Brett Freak. So one moment, please.
Okay, Brett. Yeah, just going to remind everybody, same for everybody. Please state your name, your address, and the bylaw you're referring to, and then I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Great.
we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Law and Council. My name is Brett Freak. I live at 642 Uwood, and I am commenting on the Cbt Rezoning application for 301 Olsen. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I am calling in from the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, and acknowledge that I am a former employee of the CBT and currently sit on the board as an alternate to the at-large seat. I am part of this rezoning dynamic project that offers community spaces and office spaces and housing, all of which we are in short of in Tofino. I also want to acknowledge, I know a lot of these things have been said earlier, but I think the location is great. You know, it's close to town, it's accessible by foot, it's accessible by boat through the crab dock, and it's soon to be accessible by bus once we get our bus system into play. It also has a large amount of parking, which I understand is part of the reason why the massing may seem large, is that the parking has had to be put under the building itself. But most importantly, it's creating community space. There are few places, as mentioned by others, to gather in Tofino to bring people together. There are few education spaces outside of the elementary school, and there's few meeting spaces for use by nonprofits and community groups. This is really critical. There's a lot of work that gets done in Tofino and the region by community groups, service groups, and it's difficult to find places to bring people together. One of the things that I think is really amazing about this project is that it was designed collaboratively with input from community members from all across the Biosphere region, as well as nonprofits and service groups that will be using the space and education groups. So when you look at the design, all of the components have been highlighted by members of the community as something that's needed here. And so, you know, I empathize with the neighbors. I understand that it's, you know, concerning when there's new development that's going to be different than what the rest of the neighborhood looks like. But I think, as the previous speaker said, that CBT offices are used predominantly 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and that it won't have as big of an impact on the neighborhood as the neighbors may fear. And anyway, I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you very much for hosting this opportunity for community members to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Freak. Ms. Best, do we have one more?
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do have one more request at this moment. It's Rebecca Horowitz. One moment, please.
Ms. Horowitz.
Thank you, Mayor Law and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, please state your name, your address, and the bylaw you're referring to, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
Rebecca Hurwitz on behalf of the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust at 316 Main Street, joining from Tla-o-qui-aht territory. Thank you to everyone that has shown support for our application and for the general CBT support that the neighbors have shared. The CBT has approached this project as an opportunity for community development by learning about and following protocol with Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations Hotwaya, asking for ongoing public input on the building's design features, benefits, and uses, and building capacity through workshops on related topics such as social procurement. We see this as an opportunity to create real community benefit through both the building and the operation of the Biosphere Center. I understand that ultimately you are considering a land use question. This is the same question the CBT board considered when making the decision to purchase 301 Olson Road. Knowing that the lot was zoned for a duplex, we look closely at the OCP to understand how the Biosphere Center land use fits with the goals outlined in the community plan. While we weighed the property in regards to our criteria, the board also considered the history of rezoning applications for the lot and the past concerns of the neighbors about commercial development. The CBT feels strongly that our proposed institutional and residential uses are a good fit for the existing mixed-use Crab Dock neighborhood and Tofino. Our community space is significantly different than past commercial applications, as is our objective to build and manage the Biosphere Center for community benefit. This high visibility location is the gateway to town, and our project will contribute to public realm improvements by creating a buffer between the Muff and the Campbell Street traffic, helping to achieve the urban design objectives of the OCP. The central location is accessible by boat, bikes, pedestrians, and bus in the future, encouraging people to use alternate forms of transportation, which is aligned with the transportation plan. We surveyed partners about how they'll arrive at the center, and 24% indicated they would arrive by vehicle, while 76% said they would arrive by bike, on foot, or other means of transportation. As staff, we regularly provide directions to our meetings and work to minimize parking concerns at our current office and when hosting events in communities. We have the capacity and commitment to minimize any impact to the neighborhood as detailed in the traffic impact assessment. Lastly, it's very important to the CBT that we maintain the affordable housing component in our project. Our work on vital signs and the living wage demonstrates what a critical issue housing is, and we did not want to see a net loss in housing stock. The 2 modest rental units will allow only eligible tenants as per a housing agreement with the District of Tofino, which prioritizes CBT staff, organizational partners, and essential workers. The CBT has agreed never to allow these units to be used for short-term vacation rentals. Ultimately, the CBT wants to add to the Crab Dock neighborhood and community. We've worked in an open and transparent manner and responded to design input by significantly reducing the building massing, creating an expanded landscape buffer, and removing any windows or decks which could compromise the privacy of the other property owners. We hope the traffic impact assessment will support future improvements to the pre-existing safety concerns on that corner, and we're working proactively with the district as you address the existing surface water drainage problems down Olson Road. On behalf of the board, I ask you to support the rezoning of 301 Olson Road because our proposal will be the best use of this property for the future of Tofino and the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurwitz. Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do not have any more requests for submissions.
Then I will call a third time. I think Aaron maybe already called the third time. I'll do
Yes,
it
but you
again.
may call. You may call a
I will
final
call
time.
a third time and give anybody else a last chance. Again, we are striving to be fair, open, and inclusive.
Seeing none, I think we can close the submission period.
Okay, the submission period is closed, and I believe we move adjournment of the public hearing. I will move the public hearings be adjourned. Seconded by, looking for a second, seconded by Councillor McMaster. Any further comments? All in favor. Thank you, Mrs. Chalmers, Councillor Chalmers. Excellent. And I believe at this point, I think I would like to call a recess. I'm looking to council. Would council be amenable to a, oh geez, there we go again. A 5 or 10 minute recess? 5-minute recess. Okay. I'll move a 5-minute recess, which puts us at 16 minutes after 6. Excellent. Once I see everybody's faces, I will return to the regular council meeting. Excellent. Ms. Best is here. Just looking around. I did see Councillor Chalmers. Councillor Chalmers is in attendance with her screen off for known reasons. Okay. If everybody's here, then we'll return to the agenda, regular council agenda, presentations and reports. We have 10.1. We have a zoning amendment applications for 711 and 721 Campbell Street. We have a report presentation from Mr. Thick.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to be sharing my screen. So the first presentation I have for you this evening is related to the two properties at 711 and 721 Campbell Street. So the zoning amendment application. At the moment, we're at the permission to proceed stage. So we are basically just introducing the application from a high level and seeing whether or not council is interested in moving forward with further review and the drafting bylaw for this particular development application. The application was received on July 30th of this year. Again, this is a permission to proceed report. So we're just looking to broadly outline the proposal. There is some significant additional detail that will need to be provided by the applicant should the proposal, continue to move forward. I would note that the presentation from earlier in the council meeting showed a site plan that was new to staff. Sorry, Mayor Law, are you commenting? I'm not sure.
Sorry, your sound went off.
I apologize. Can you hear me a bit better now?
I probably had my mute. I'm going to turn my mute.
Okay, I'll continue if there's no problems. There will likely be some additional detail related to the application should the proposal move forward and prior to us actually drafting a bylaw for council's consideration. There will be significant additional information that will need to be provided by the applicant. The location is 711 and 721 Campbell Street. So currently 2 lots, both zoned R1. These are on the west side of Campbell Street, approximately halfway between Olson Road and the So the proposal that's under consideration is the consolidation of the 2 lots and amending the zoning to what is likely to be a comprehensive development zone that will facilitate a new residential development that would increase the permitted density on property and also alter the permitted form of housing. The final density on the property, staff's understanding at the moment, will be approximately 16 units. Originally, we were looking, or the applicants, pardon me, were considering 4 detached homes on the higher western portion of the property and 12 townhome style units in the central area of the lot. Based on the site plan that was provided by one of the applicants at the earlier presentation, it appears that site plan has changed a little bit. Staff will continue to work with the applicants to ensure that the correct site plan or the most up-to-date site plan is included in any bylaw that may be drafted. Parking would be along the eastern lot line, so that's adjacent to Campbell Street. My understanding is that parking will remain the same based on the most recent site plan that was presented. Looking a little bit at the policy that we use to help inform our decisions related to these zoning applications, or at least inform staff's recommendations. Some of the key statements within the vision to action that I pulled out include Tofino being comprised of compact and distinct neighborhoods, offering nodes of commercial and retail services. Diversity of housing forms is available. One of the words I wanted to highlight in this particular statement is the affordable. I understand that can be a nebulous term. However, even at our highest policy documents, we still consider affordable housing to be a key component of all development applications. And Tofino's culture, reflecting its integration and interdependence with the Biosphere, And also, I noted within the vision to action, there is a specific policy related to old growth features in the town. The property in question does have some old growth features on it, and so we'd be looking to preserve those as much as possible through the proposed development. The official community plan designates the property as within the village designation. So this is the kind of the more downtown core area of Tofino, the heart of the community where West Coast residents converge for socializing, errands, education, and recreation. Development in this area is largely focused on commercial offices and high density housing. The highest priority of developments within our OCP currently is affordable housing. So it's worthwhile remembering that through all these applications, we do actually have very clear expectations in our OCP as to what our priorities are for development. Currently, we're prioritizing affordable housing. Market housing is the second highest priority. Density is encouraged in this area while promoting a building scale that's appropriate for the community. And in general, I would say the proposal is in line with policies and goals of the OCP. We're looking for more dense housing in this area, and the applicant is proposing more dense housing in the area. So the property is impacted by two development permit areas. One is the Wildlife Habitat Development Permit Area. That's an environmental DPA that considers basically the overall functioning of the ecosystem. And the second DPA is the Steep Slopes DPA. I'm sure council is all aware that this particular property has a significant slope to it. It's quite challenging topography to build on. Both these DPAs will be addressed through the building permit process. They don't necessarily need to be considered during rezoning, or they won't be addressed specifically during rezoning. However, it's worth keeping those in mind. One of the other things that I wanted to note at this point, that there's no development permit area that considers form and character in this area. So any form and character considerations that come up through this rezoning amendment application should be mentioned and noted by council as we move through the rezoning, should it continue. And if there's concern about the form and character, staff will be looking to ensure that the form and character that's proposed at rezoning will actually be constructed through a development agreement or some other form of covenant to ensure that. Affordable housing, I've mentioned it once already, but the 2015 Affordable Housing Needs Assessment indicates that permanent year-round rental housing is a housing category of great need. Entry-level housing for first-time buyers, also a category of great need. Currently, there's not a lot of that within the District of Tofino. But we do have preliminary drafts of an upcoming Affordable Housing Needs Assessment anticipated to be done and released early next year. These preliminary drafts essentially confirm the same thing and have some more detail to add. But largely, we're looking for entry-level housing and year-round rental housing. Inclusion of some provisions for affordable housing will likely be a significant aspect of this rezoning. We've had initial conversations with the applicants around this. We have nothing definite to offer council at this point. However, through the community amending contribution policy, as well as general goals of the OCP, we are looking to ensure that at least a couple of the proposed units will be in some way able to be considered affordable. Likely this will be through price restricted, resident restricted sales, similar to the Sea Otter unit or the Gateway unit that were recently sold off through the Tofino Housing Corporation. So both lots in question are currently zoned single family residential. This zone permits detached dwelling with suite and accessory buildings and uses. So typically the housing on these properties take the form of a single home, often with a suite, and more often than not in recent years, either the main home or the suite will be used as a vacation rental. That permission does exist on this property currently, or on both properties, I should say, currently. According to zoning permissions, the lots could be subdivided without rezoning up to 7 lots. I note that this is a strictly legal interpretation of the zoning bylaw. To actually go through that subdivision, we would be considering parkland dedication as well as just the general topography of the lots, which would likely significantly limit that subdivision. You would not be able to actually get 7 lots. So the reason I mention this is that there's the potential without a rezoning, without coming to council, for the property to be rezoned and then have the density reach 8 to 10 units would maybe not be completely unfeasible. So when we look at the overall increase in density here, it is a significant increase in density, but it's not as if it'll be one house becoming 16 units. It very well, there are current development permissions on the property that would allow significantly more density than a single house or 2 houses on each property. The proposed zoning will increase this density. However, the other major benefit to the town and to the goal of housing in the town would be that we will remove short-term rental permissions through the zoning amendment. So any of the units would not be permitted to have short-term rentals. They'd be for long-term ownership or rental, long-term occupancy only. Anticipation of a strata subdivision if the build-out proceeds as it has been conceived. And of course, additional information will be determined, will be needed to determine the final density for the proposal. This will be required prior to any bylaw that's brought before council's consideration should the application continue to proceed. So a few of the other initial considerations that staff have flagged, the multimodal transport plan, really seeks to reduce our reliance on vehicular transport. There may be some opportunities through this development to increase our ability to access the multi-use path, which will be on the other side of Campbell Street from this particular development. I do note that there is a significant MOTI controlled right-of-way. The actual asphalt of Campbell Street only occupies a small section of the overall right-of-way for this particular region of Campbell Street. So there may be some opportunity for cooperation with MOTI for improvements along the frontage that would allow for better access and then potentially better active transport infrastructure. The topography, I've already mentioned that it's quite challenging topography to work with, very steep, as you may have noticed as you drove by it. This is not particularly within the realm of a rezoning application. However, it's worth considering in a large part, any construction on this particular property will be a significant exercise in engineering. However, that's not necessarily something that we really dig into too deep at the rezoning stage, as we have development permit areas as well as the building permit process that really addresses any of those safety concerns brought by construction along steep slopes. Housing affordability, I won't dwell on this one, but it's going to be an important part of this particular rezoning application. Staff are really hoping to work with the applicants to ensure that at least a couple of the units have some level of affordability associated with them. The current market in Tofino has far outstripped the ability of most people within Tofino to afford a home here at market value. So we would be hoping to ensure that at least that some of the proposed homes, should they eventually be built out, are available to those who live in our community that might not otherwise be able to stay here long term or afford a home. Form and character, again, mentioned this, we don't have a development permit area that controls form and character on this particular property. So any concerns related to form and character should be considered through the rezoning process and maybe ensured through a covenant or some other development agreement to ensure that any proposed form of housing that council has agreed on is actually constructed later in the development process. Environmental considerations, there's some significant old growth features on the lot. It's within a wildlife habitat development permit area, so prior to any construction, environmental impact assessment will need to be completed and any mitigation efforts need to be implemented. This may be something that the applicant does prior to the completion of the rezoning, as it may inform the overall design. However, it's something that staff will continue to work with the applicant on. Flooding and tsunami, the subject property is actually outside of the flooding and tsunami concern zones, so there's not much concern from staff around there. Traffic, access, and parking, it's likely that we will be requesting a traffic impact analysis prior to second reading should the application proceed. And we will also be working pretty closely with MOTI to ensure that safe access off the highway can actually be provided to that site and that adequate parking on site is provided. As far as infrastructure and fire safety, we will likely be requiring a servicing brief prior to second reading, which helps our engineering team understand the impacts of sewer flows and water demand, as well as stormwater, wastewater management from the developments, and we'll get our engineering team to review that prior to second reading should the application proceed. We've had initial conversations with the fire chief about this particular development. The nearest fire hydrant is across the road and a little bit further to the south. So there may be a need to either move the fire hydrant or install some fire suppression on the property itself. This could include sprinklers within the buildings as well as standpipe halfway up the lot or something in that area. However, the fire chief does not think that the problem is insurmountable. And then there's the question of a CAC, which the community amenity contribution would likely tie in quite closely with the housing affordability that I've mentioned, something that staff will continue to work on with the applicant and bring something a little bit more firm back in place for council's consideration. Again, this will likely take the form of an affordable housing unit or two. However, this is a conversation that will need to be continued. At this point, staff are recommending that the application proceed with further review. Other options available to council at this point would be to defer, otherwise deal with the application, or deny the application. And if there are any questions or comments at this point, I'd be happy to do my best to speak to them. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Thick. Just going to open this up just for a question of clarity. Once you've minimized your screen there,
Sorry, one moment.
I don't expect you to answer my question while you're trying to figure out your screen. There we go.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I was minimizing myself there.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Thick. Can you just go back and comment on the difference between the application as presented to staff and the application presented to earlier on? Just a quick comment on that.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. My understanding is that the applicants purchased the property, I believe, earlier this year, and they've been, they purchased it with the intent of rezoning. However, due to the challenging topography, they've been kind of in various, we've seen sort of various design iterations, and then we've had multiple conversations with them as they've worked through the various design iterations. The initial concept that they applied with, and that was attached to the permission to proceed report that was included in the agenda, included 4 individual smaller single family homes at the top of the lot along the western property line. And then my understanding was there would be 8 to 10, kind of depending on how many they could fit in, more townhouse style homes. And from a construction standpoint, those would actually be treated more like an apartment building, if that makes sense, because they're essentially apartments that are just stuck together and would not be quite the same as a townhome, but they would appear as townhomes. The site plan that was shown by Ms. Reichert in her presentation earlier in the council meeting, that was the first time that I'd actually seen that site plan. So I think it looks to acquire the same overall density of about 16 units. But perhaps provides an easier way of site circulation. Originally, the proposed funicular was actually along right along the property line, which would have been very much adjacent to the northern residential property. Following some conversations with staff, we indicated that we would probably be unlikely to support a funicular within a required setback, and I believe that may have been why the funicular was moved towards the central area of the lot, and then the rest of the site plan reconfigured. However, I would say that we would need to have a very certain and definite site plan from the applicants in order to draft a bylaw that would later then be brought forward for council's consideration. So at this point, I think the overall use, maintaining it as residential, and the overall density of about approximately 16 units is supportable and remains supportable by staff. However, due to the topography and due to the challenging nature of the lot, I think the applicants have been trying to reconfigure their site plans to ensure that what they're proposing can really be built and is an adequate development for the lot.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to turn it over to council now for questions. Questions for Mr. Thick. Councillor McMaster, go ahead.
Yeah, I find it quite an interesting application. My biggest concern at the moment would be access for emergency vehicles, in particular ambulance. And but I would support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Any further comments for questions for Mr. Thick? Nothing? Councillor Chalmers, just for you.
Sorry, I have comments on the application, but not questions for Mr. Thick. Shall I wait until we
That's a good question. I think in this case, maybe we can because it is at the very beginning stages and there's a lot of clearly a lot of unknowns. Normally, I would restrict comments to within the motion, but I think in this case, I think perhaps I'm looking to Mr. Thick. Mr. Thick may benefit from a more expanded question and comment period.
Okay,
but I will look to Mr. Thick for that.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Yeah, through the chair, I would any comments that council has would certainly be useful, and then we can take those back to the applicant to further refine the proposed development.
Sure. So I like the application. I think it brings something new to Tofino that's kind of fulfilling a hole that we're missing in that entry level. It's similar concerns about ambulance and fire, and I think a lot of those will be addressed through the process. My one other concern, which is one I always hate bringing up, but is parking. From experience throughout town, when there is not enough parking, there is that overflow that happens. You look at Hallison Promotion Park on the highway from the gateway. So having it limited to one unit and looking at where the entryway is, like where will that spill over visitors, or if there are two cars. So just really concerns of what the ramifications of only having one lot per zoning visitor parking overflow. So looking at that would be my one concern for it.
Thank you. Further comments? Now is a really good time to comment on this. I think Mr. Thick is looking for direction, so I would like to give him as much direction from council as possible. Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Thick.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. I believe the staff report captures most of the top issues on my mind. That significant trees and the access and also affordable housing being very prominent in my mind. So I think the application presents some great opportunities because the applicants are interested in sustainable development. They're interested in affordable housing. So there may be some options for water collection or maybe some good energy use options in the design and construction of the development. I guess the one thing that isn't really captured at this point, and it is early, is there may be in the future opportunity to access this from another side should the land behind this lot become developed. So I'd like to not to be missed at this point. I don't think the opportunity is there to access it now, but in the future, I think we should leave that door open. Yeah, and I agree with the emergency access is important as well. So those are my early comments.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Thick.
Thank you, Mayor Law, and also for the report. I find it interesting application, but at this stage, I would have to say at the outset that I find it difficult to initially support. And the reasons I feel that it's difficult to support is that the density, from my point of view, is really too high for the topography. I've walked up and down that lot several times, and I don't know if others have, but it's I think it was mentioned in the report 36% was the grade, and at Radar Hill I believe it's 12. It varies from 12 to 18. So you're looking at a very, very steep topography, and as outlined in the report, I think that the with 12 feet of rain a year, that's something to consider, because I don't know, looking at the lot and having walked on it, how it would be possible to get 16 units there. But I think that is one of my main concerns. The density for the topography seems far out of reach. The other thing is the parking, as Councillor Chalmers mentioned, it would be a showstopper for me. I think we've been very tight on that as a council and in previous councils about what is outlined in the bylaw, and I think it needs to be maintained. Lastly, I have trouble with the fact that just today we saw photos and descriptions of what was proposed, but it was not in our package. And I have a problem with that. I think that if you're asking a council to deliberate on a very serious matter and something that affects many, many people's lives and could add to the housing stock in Tofino, but there's a different sketch given, I have a problem with that. So for me, I'm very reluctant to even to give permission to proceed. I don't want to give someone false hope for something I don't feel is the right way to go forward in light of what I just said. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thick. You know what, I'm going to echo everybody, even and not even, but I'm going to also echo Councillor Thick's points of view. I think it's intriguing. It's an intriguing proposal. I think I agree with all the councillors. There are some problems with it to do with topography, access, parking, and density. I think I agree with Councillor Thick that particular dot with that density. And I do want to reflect back on the application that we have, that there are going to be families and children, and that looking at the application and the design and thinking of aiming for families and children on that steep slope with a funicular, on that corner with very little parking and very little pedestrian access or no pedestrian access. That does pose problems for me. I know it hasn't been mentioned in any of the reports, but tsunamis are usually preceded by earthquakes, and I think that that is something that I would like to see addressed. I know that it's a steep slope, and if there is a significant earthquake, then I can't imagine that either the access would remain, and I do know from my limited understanding of engineering that houses built on stilts do not function very well in earthquakes at all. So I would be very careful, and I know if we do go forward with this, that the seismic assessments be done with any buildings, and I know that that's of course out of our realm right now, but I just want to highlight that I did not see that, and that is a concern for me, allowing a development to go through that could, in the event of an earthquake, be harmful to the community or to the residents. Any other further comments from council? So my question to council is this is for permission to proceed. We do have obviously the earlier presentation from Ms. Price Francis slightly different. They're different than what was in the package. And so, and we do have several concerns. However, everybody, there is a positive attitude somewhat in general, or from the majority of council. So I'm wondering how we can go forward, if it's advisable to suggest that we are generally favorable with further reflection between the applicant and our planner, noting that there's some differences here between the application and what was presented earlier. Councillor Thick. Oh, you're muted. I think you actually muted yourself.
Sorry. As I said earlier, I not only would be very reluctant, I probably would not vote in favor of the permission to proceed, and particular on that point, I guess you would call it a point of order. When there is a different presentation, I don't know exactly what I'm being asked to give permission to. I don't have a clear picture. I have two different pictures. I was not given an updated package, so I feel that if I were to say yes, I'm really not sure. I have two completely different pictures in my mind, and I don't feel at all positive about going forward with that. Thank you.
Council, I'm actually gonna look to council for a little input here before I make a recommendation. Go ahead, Councillor Chalmers. Councillor McMaster.
I'm comfortable with moving forward with permission to proceed, and I understand what Councillor Thick is saying. And I think why I'm comfortable with it is just permission to proceed. It's giving the applicant the idea of whether it's something that we would even consider. The details and getting more into it, I think we will hit it first reading. And that's when I'd want to make sure everything really kind of aligned there. So looking at the general idea of it, that's why I'm comfortable moving forward with it. Knowing that the applicant is probably listening and Mr. Thick is listening and our concerns to be addressed, so it won't come forward to council as an actual application. And I think without those being acknowledged, but I do understand what you're saying there, Councillor Thick.
Councillor McMaster.
Similar to Councillor Chalmers, I'm happy moving forward. I think Councillor's raised a lot of questions and concerns, and I'd like to see how they are answered or dealt with.
Okay, and Councillor Anderson, I think it's good to get everybody's comments here for Mr. Thick.
Yeah, I'm comfortable at this very early stage of giving permission to proceed. I'm not particularly concerned that there were a different site plan was in the presentation. We've seen many times many iterations as the design process of development is worked through. And the application was initially, I think, turned over to staff in June. And yeah, these are all not finalized proposals. They're just ideas of how it might fit on the lot. And if we give permission to go forward, we will probably see another iteration come forward to council as they work through details and what works with engineering and what works with the site. So, I mean, they still have to go through, looking at, I think an environmental assessment was talked about in the staff report, and looking at significant trees that might be retained. So any site drawings that we might get are just ideas right now, and they need to be adjusted and responded to as we work through those different assessments and those layers of looking at the topography and the environmental values on the land and adjust the siting as we go. So that I'm not particularly concerned about seeing a couple different drawings. There may be even other drawings that they have out there that we haven't seen yet. So yeah, I am comfortable with moving forward, but yes, the site does have a lot of challenges, and it's going to be more difficult for the developers to develop on that land than other places. So it's I commend them for trying to bring some of the community values here that we've stated over and over again to meet that gap in the housing market, and to propose something that they're willing to consider foregoing short-term rental zone, etc. So they've already demonstrated some response to our official community plans and community values, and I think that we should show a willingness to move forward on that basis. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. And just I know, sorry, Mr. Thick, that you've exited out of here, but I just have a quick question. I wrote it down, but I forgot. We're a little out of order, but I think it's okay because this is an unusual project, and I think there's significant things to talk about. One of the things is you said the two existing lots now in the existing zoning would have the potential for 10 to 12 residential units. I just want to make sure that I had that right.
Yeah, so when I made that comment, I was regarding the existing development rights, following a fairly strict interpretation of the zoning bylaw. So the R1 lots can actually be subdivided. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I believe it's about 18,000 square foot lots. Similar to a lot of the downtown lots or lots, kind of up Pfeiffer Street and Lone Cone, those areas. Those two lots could potentially be, from a strictly legal interpretation, could potentially be subdivided up into 7 lots. However, creating those 7 lots it's very unlikely that would actually be feasible in practical reality. There'd be considerations for parkland dedication, as well as considerations for access, as well as considerations for topography. Pardon me, I just had a quick moment over the side there. That was Mr. Rogers coming in and letting me know that the actual lot size should be 7,200 square feet, I believe. So there'd be significant considerations for topography as well as access and parkland. So in practical reality, that type of subdivision may not be possible, but for something to be subdivided, for those 2 lots to be subdivided, for example, into potentially 4, maybe 5 lots, that could be done if you have a good enough engineer, I suppose. Those 4 or 5 lots would probably likely all develop similar to the houses on Gibson Heights, which are single family houses with suites. Each lot would have 2 dwelling units, and you would be looking at 8 to 10 and potentially up to 12 dwelling units based on the current zoning. So that is the actual density that's permitted on the lots. Whether or not you'd be able to reach that higher level of target density would largely depend on the way the property was subdivided. But that's from a strict interpretation of the development rights granted to those properties, that would be possible, and that's why I included it.
Okay, excellent. Well then, thank you very much, Mr. Thick. I think I've heard from council. I think the majority feel that this is a cautious endorsement to work further with planning on this, and we'll look for some changes. And I did remember thinking that we've seen some permissions to proceed with just hand-drawn things, fairly simple. So in that sense, I think that I'm okay with seeing a little variation, although certainly understand that there's a little discomfort with that. So then go ahead, Councillor McMaster.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Okay.
Let staff proceed with further review of the zoning amendment application for 711 and 721 Campbell Street.
Seconded by Councillor Chalmers. And now is time for further comment. Seeing none, all in favor? And all opposed? Councillor Thick opposed. This motion has been passed. Moving right along, we've got 10.2 zoning amendment application 200 Campbell Street, and we have another report from Mr. Thick.
Thank you again, Mayor Law. I'll be sharing my screen for this report as well, or for this presentation. Pardon me. So this presentation is related to the report that was presented to Council for the 200 Campbell Street zoning amendment. Again, this is also a permission to proceed report, so similar to the last zoning amendment presentation that we just discussed. The application was received on June 15th of this year. Staff were actually reviewing a development permit for a proposed building on the property, and then noted that the proposed design did not meet the zoning requirements, and the applicant has initiated the zoning amendment based on those comments. The location is at the far west end of Campbell Street. This is 200 Campbell. May be familiar to many members of council, as it was the subject of a recent rezoning application that was adopted earlier this year. The applicant is essentially looking to remove the requirement for 2 staff sleeping units and an office that was included in the original zone recently adopted by council. The applicant has indicated that they're no longer necessary for the functioning of the business. And in order to replace the lost staff sleeping units, one of the proposed units would be not permitted to short-term rental, could only be occupied long-term. Market housing unit sold on the market, and then whoever bought it could reside in it long-term, or it could be rented long-term, but it would not have the vacation rental permissions that the other units within the development do. Again, starting with the vision to action to examine some of the policy that staff use to consider these applications. In the neighborhood section, the vision to action has some somewhat relevant comments, mostly that downtown Tofino is vibrant, mixture of residential amenities, commercial uses, work and waterfront. And again, a diversity of housing forms are available throughout the community. Again, just highlight that word affordable, even at our highest level policy documents. The official community plan designates the property as within the village area. So this is again the heart of the community where West Coast residents converge for socializing, errands, education, recreation. Housing is supported in this area. Affordable housing is the #1 priority within the OCP. So affordable housing is prioritized over market housing. So while staff note that removing the short-term rental permission for one of the units will add to the overall long-term housing stock, which is something that the OCP supports, at the loss of 2 staff sleeping units, essentially 2 affordable housing units, or I should say that it would likely be 1 affordable housing unit with 2 bedrooms within it. At the loss of an affordable housing unit, the proposal cannot be supported. Essentially, we would be looking at trading one form of housing that's a lower priority for a form of housing that is a higher priority. So that is largely the basis for staff's recommendation to deny the application. The Campbell Street development permit area does affect the subject property. So this is a development permit area that relates directly to form and character. They're initially reviewed by staff in the design review panel with any recommendations from the design review panel brought forward to council for council's issuance of the permit. During the design review, as was noted earlier in the presentation, staff noted that the proposed design did not have the required staff housing units and did not have the required office that was specified within the zoning. And rather than redesign the structure, the applicant has decided to apply to rezone so that they can maintain the proposed design that does not have the sleeping units or office. Looking at the 2015 Affordable Housing Needs Assessment, and keeping in mind that we have another Affordable Housing Needs Assessment that will be released shortly, year-round rental housing is a category of great need. And rents for this type of housing should largely be within the range of what is considered affordable. We typically use the CMHC definition. It's a fairly common one, which means that 30% of the gross monthly income without a housing agreement in place, there's really no guarantee that the long-term units that would replace the staff accommodation units would be considered affordable in any way. It would likely go on the market as a market sale property. Staff's understanding that the proposed building will be strata subdivided with each of the units independently owned. And a unit in this particular building with the quality of the building and the location of the site is unlikely to be affordable to most of the residents of Tofino in the same way that the original staff accommodation units that were required by the zoning would be. So the zoning was recently rezoned to CDPC 5, that's Downtown Core 5 Comprehensive Development Zone. So this is a site-specific zone that had been in the works since, I believe, 2012 and was only adopted recently, I believe spring of this year. And it allows the build out of a 10-unit resort condominium style development. So these are independent units that could be rented nightly or could be lived in long-term, similar to the Fred Tibbs building. Originally, these 2 units of staff accommodation and the office were for the check-in of guests to the resort condominium and also to house the staff that would be working there, checking people in and out, and also likely cleaning the units. However, the applicants noted that since the rezoning went through, they've realized that they will likely be booking all of the units through an online platform such as VRBO or Airbnb, and then the units, all that vacation rental activities will be managed by an outside company, one of the local companies in town. So there'll be no directly employed individuals for the actual business for the building, and as such, they no longer require the staff accommodation or the office, and so they would like to remove that requirement from the zoning. So a few of the other considerations, a lot of these are not really a great change from the existing zoning. Many of these sorts of things were considered during the original rezoning that was quite recently. So as far as the multimodal transport plan, it's not going to be a significant difference between what currently exists and what is proposed. The subject property is right in the downtown area, very walkable and bikeable to many community amenities. And the 2 units of staff housing being removed may slightly reduce the parking needs of the overall development. However, it's unlikely that there would be a significant change with reference to the multimodal transport plan. Flooding and tsunami, again, the same risks would exist. It's my understanding that there's, because of the steepness of the lot and the overall height of the building, there's actually not a huge risk of tsunami or flooding. I should say there's not a huge risk of flooding, but there's of course can be a significant risk of tsunami anytime you're adjacent to the water. And to Mayor Law's comments on the last application, there may also be a risk of earthquake. However, based on the current zoning permissions and what the zoning amendment is requesting, there would be very little, if any, difference in the existing risk versus what the proposed new zoning would permit. Housing agreement, I've mentioned this is kind of the crux of staff's recommendation to deny the application. Without a housing agreement, we're not very adequately replacing the lost staff housing units. And replacing these staff housing units, these affordable units, with a kind of a more luxury upscale 2-bedroom market development is not adequate in light of the priorities that have been established within the official community plan. So without a housing agreement, and staff have reached out to the applicant requesting that a housing agreement be a consideration for this application, and the applicant has noted that they do not feel it necessary as the development was never intended to provide affordable housing, which staff agree with. However, there were 2 units of staff housing included, and losing those without an adequate replacement is not something that's acceptable under the current official community plan. Traffic access and parking will more or less be the same between the current zone and the proposed zoning amendment. Again, the overall density may be reduced by 2 sleeping units. However, it would be unlikely that this would change the kind of the parking plan or the access plan for the property. Infrastructure is again, we'd be potentially losing 2 units of staff housing. So maybe 1 less bathroom and a little bit less wear and tear on district infrastructure, but unlikely to really change that situation very much at all. And then the community amenity contribution policy. Typically, these would, in this kind of a application, would take place of some sort of an affordable housing guarantee. So a housing agreement, again, typically for private developers, these would likely take the place of price restricted, resident restricted purchasing options, similar to Sea Otter and the Gateway. However, as the applicant has indicated that they are uninterested in entering into any sort of housing agreement or providing those kinds of assurances to the district, should the application move forward, the community amendment contribution will be taking a different form if it's required by council. And that's something that staff will continue to discuss with the applicant and bring something back for council's consideration, likely at first or second reading if the application continues to move forward. So at this point, there are essentially 3 options for council today. You could either deny the application, proceed with further review of the application, or defer, otherwise deal with the application. Staff are currently recommending to deny the application as the proposal is not in keeping with the priorities established in the official community plan. I would note as well that the proposal as put forward by the applicant does not fail the alignment test that's required by the Local Government Act. So when an official community plan is adopted, all zoning bylaws and other bylaws that come after that official community plan must be in alignment with any of the goals and policies. So while this isn't completely out of alignment, we don't have any we've kind of noted that our priorities are affordable housing followed by market housing. However, there's no language within the OCP that would prohibit this particular type of development. It's just not very well supported by the OCP. So should council wish to move the application forward, it will not require an OCP amendment. But in general, staff are still unsupportive of it as it is not really supported by the OCP goals and policies. If there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thick. Do we have questions for Mr. Thick from council on this application? No questions? So I just want to be clear. I know you've been very clear throughout this, but I just want to reiterate this. This is essentially a loss of affordable housing or a loss of housing in general. It does not align with what the original agreement was, and that the applicants are unwilling to work with council or work with staff further to work on any affordable housing agreement or realignment of this housing loss. That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah, staff have been in contact with the applicant and indicated that we would be unsupportive of the application without some sort of commitment from them to work on a housing agreement or in some way ensure that the unit that would be used to replace the staff units would be an adequate replacement in serving as some form of affordable housing, which was, in staff's understanding, a condition of the original rezoning to provide those 2 units of affordable staff housing. And the applicant has noted that they would not like to enter into that housing agreement, and they understand that staff are unsupportive of the application, that being the case.
Okay, once again, any comments from council? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I see this. This is a resort, and we've had requirements that resorts provide staff housing for a long time. It's been long-standing. It is going to have an impact on the need for housing in Tofino, and the zoning was granted in consideration of those things. So really, this is a completely different zoning application. You know, if it was considered again, as they're proposing with these amendments, I don't know if the zoning would be granted. So I am in agreement with staff, and the fact that the development would externalize those needs for staff housing and externalize those needs for the front desk or an administrative function for a resort doesn't mean that the impact on the need for housing doesn't exist with the creation of the resort. So I am in agreement with staff and recommendation to deny the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Chalmers?
I thank you. I'm also in agreement to deny the application for all the reasons that were brought up by staff, as well as the idea of not having a caretaker on site concerns me, and turning a room that's very much the same as any other short-term rental. Who's to say future people that purchase it are going to follow the rules? And just a can of worms that I'm not interested in, and losing that accommodation for the community, I don't think is something that I'm interested in.
Thank you, Councillor Chalmers. Any further comment? Councillor Thick.
Yeah, just to add to that, I also cannot support the amendment and would agree with staff that it should be denied for the reasons given in regards to the OCP. But two other reasons, I think, just that, you know, these things were made very clear at the beginning, the conditions of the zoning, that at least one dwelling unit with a minimum of 2 staff sleeping units shall be supplied on the property. There's no ambiguity there in my mind, what was expected. And as Councillor Anderson said, you know, that it does, there is a significant domino effect. The units do, you know, 10 units don't clean themselves. People who clean and who work in that industry, I know some of them very well. They live in substandard housing, and they're always struggling for housing. So, you know, it doesn't matter what the applicant might say. I just feel that it is a completely untenable to expect that someone who cleans those units should find accommodation in Tofino. It was written in the agreement. The OCP supports affordable housing, and I can't support the amendment and agree with the staff on the recommendation that's given. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thick. Councillor McMaster.
I agree with the rest of council, and I'm concerned if we did allow this to go forward, we would see lots of developments proposing staff housing, and then suddenly, as soon as things are completed, there's a change in business plan, and we want to convert the staff housing to marketplace units. So I think we have to stick to our guns. I would not have supported the initial application without the proposal for staff housing. So happy to deny.
Thank you. And I do want to, I think that this is a resort. It will require staff, an increase in staff overall. They will need somewhere to live. And noting that this is a loss of housing general from what was agreed, and also taking the point that the present applicants and owners of the property, although they don't, they indicate they won't need an office or etc. I think that council does have to look past the present owners and to resorts in general and the community as a whole going forward. And so I think for those reasons, and specifically the lack of affordable housing agreement, as Mr. Thick has pointed out, is a reason for me also to deny this. Would like to see a return to the original agreement or something comparable. Without further ado, then, would somebody like to read the recommendation?
I'll move the recommendation that the application for a zoning amendment for the property at 200 Campbell Street be considered and denied.
Seconded by Councillor McMaster. Any further comment? All in favor? Motion is carried. I believe that brings us to item 10.3, and this is 2022 council member appointments. Now we have a verbal report from Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Just a brief statement that the report outlines the recommendation from staff that council member appointments remain the same as per the last appointment date was in April of this year. So if council would like to proceed with the existing appointments, the resolution is set out there. However, if council would like to reappoint to committees, that I provided sample resolutions as Appendix 2 to the report. So happy to assist if there's any changes requested.
Just looking quickly to council if any councillors request a change. Councillor Thick.
Just a question, please, for Ms. Best. I was unclear about the Alberni Health Network and what was set out in April. I'm just not sure who would Councillor Steer remain as that representative, or would that be myself? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thick. I don't know exactly at this moment, but I can get back to you. Is this also the appointment that you were not given the seat on? You have to reapply, right? So if this is from that moment that happened previous in the year, we will have to submit a request for you to be appointed, and it has not anything to do with the council's appointments for here. It's actually a separate entity, and that's how they do it. That's how they do it now. It's not an ex officio seat. You must apply as an individual for their board, not as a council member from Tofino.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was part of this package or not, but I'm okay either way. Thank you.
Okay, without further ado, would somebody like to move the recommendation? Would a councillor like to move the recommendation?
I could do that.
Thank you.
Okay, I will move that Councillor Chalmers be reappointed to the Tofino Tourism Board of Directors as voting director for the term ending earliest of council appoints another council member. The council member ceases to hold office the date of the inaugural meeting in the year of a general local election, and that Council McMaster be reappointed to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board of Trustees, and with Councillor Anderson as alternate for a term ending the earliest of council appoints another council member. The council member ceases to hold office the date of the inaugural meeting in the year of a general local election. And further, that all committee and commission appointments from the April 9th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting continue with terms ending the earliest of council appoints another council member. The council member ceases to hold office the date of an inaugural meeting in the year of the general local election.
Seconded by Councillor McMaster. I just have a comment just for the record. I think it's April 19th. That's my comment. Sounded like 9th, but I don't know if that matters. All in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on, 11, bylaws. 11.1, District of Tofino Business Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 85810/2021 is up for adoption. Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We just would like to note a clerical error on my part. We should have had resolutions to state that the bylaw name be adopted by council. So we're missing 2 resolutions here on this agenda. So for 11.1, the resolution would be that District of Tofino Business Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 858.10/2021 be adopted.
I thought that was the case. I was just going to do that if nobody else wanted to jump in. But why don't I just go ahead and do that?
Thank you.
I move that the District of Tofino Business Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 85810/2021 be adopted.
Second.
Second by Councillor Anderson. No further comment. All in favor? Motion's carried. And also move that the District of Tofino Housing Agreement Bylaw number 1313/2021 be adopted.
I'll second again.
Councillor Anderson has seconded it. Any comment? All in favor? Motion's carried. Do we have any business initiated by council members? Councillor Steer is not here, so he usually has something to say. Councillor Anderson.
You missed 11.3.
Sorry. Actually, no. That was taken off at the adoption of the agenda due to new information from staff. So that has been taken off. I have it crossed out, but that's because somebody did it for me. Let's see. So moving on, no business initiated by councillors. We have no unfinished business.
I just have quick.
Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, just want to tell council that the events, arts, culture and heritage committee met yesterday to review the council grants, and that will be coming forward to a future council meeting. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Unfinished business. Seeing none. Question period. And this is for a regular council agenda. Do we have anybody signed up for question period, Ms. Best?
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do not. From the 40 plus attendees earlier, we are down to one, and they have not submitted a question.
It's amazing. Okay, well then we will move into closed session. I recommend that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91, 92 to the community charter of the community charter to discuss matters related to 1A, personal information about an individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent. C, employee relations. E, acquisition of land. F, law enforcement. K, negotiations related to a municipal service. N, closed, provided a provision of subsection 2. 2B, negotiations between municipality and provincial government. Seconded by Councillor McMaster. All in favor? Okay, motion's carried. We're going to move into closed session. I'll give Ms. Best a chance to.
Before we break, I'm really struggling, you guys. I have no issues with any of the people that are put forward for the things.
Can we just wait till I close the meeting and stop broadcasting?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes, thank you.